It's very rare for a civilian to successfully launch a rocket into space. In fact, only one man has ever done it, Kai Michelson in 2004. But how is this decidedly modern feat vintage? Well, just bear with me for a minute today on Vintage Space. Kai Michelson's story is a great one and might be a little bit familiar to some of you guys. As a grade school student, his teachers didn't think he was very smart. In fact, he was eventually diagnosed as being dyslexic. Michelson wasn't unintelligent, he was just really bored. While all of his grade school peers were doing regular grade school work, he was doing things like building small transistor radios and sneaking them into the school. Eventually, teachers figured out what he was doing and encouraged him to start building more things. His parents also encouraged this gift and gave him a chemistry set when he was 12, and that sparked an interest in rocketry. Michelson eventually dropped out before graduating high school, but never lost his passion and interest in rocketry. In 1964, he built himself a rocket-powered motorcycle and raced it along speedways. Following the motorcycle runs, Michelson attached rockets to a snowmobile. He is from Minnesota after all. Success with these snowmobile experiments inspired Michelson to try to break as many land speed records as he could, and to date he has smashed 72 of them in the United States and internationally. But motorcycles and snowmobiles are not the only things Michelson has attached rockets to. He's also attached rockets to cars, go-karts, boats, a wheelchair, an oversized runner's snow sled, and a bicycle. He once built a Buck Rogers-inspired rocket jetpack, as well as an Earthbound jetpack that propelled his own son Kurt down a drag strip at over 50 miles an hour with the boy wearing roller skates. He even once put a rocket on a porta potty for a TV show and successfully got it to fly. It wasn't long before Michelson's rocket exploits caught the attention of Hollywood, and he ended up building rockets and creating stunts involving firepower for Hollywood movies. He's contributed to over 200 films and also launched the rockets that flew in the movie October Sky. In 2004, Michelson became a founding member of the Civilian Space Exploration Team, an amateur group of rocketeers hell-bent on getting a rocket into space. And they did it on May 17th of that year. They launched a sounding rocket 72 miles into space at a speed of over 3,400 miles per hour. It was a mission that demanded the small amateur team coordinate with local airports and all kinds of regulatory bodies, but they pulled it off. So does Michelson's story ring any bells to any of you? Because it definitely did me. Because when I first heard about it, I feel like Kai Michelson might be Max Valier reincarnated. Max Valier, as some of you guys may know, and I'll have some links to information below, was one of rocketry's early pioneers that we just don't ever talk about. Valier was inspired, like many of his peers in Germany in the 1930s, by the writings of Hermann Oberth, and namely Oberth's publication in 1923 of his doctoral dissertation Die Rakete zu den Plantentraumen. Valier and Oberth ended up corresponding for a number of years, designing rocket tests, but they had different approaches that ultimately led them to a falling out. Oberth was much more scientific, while Valier was a big fan of public demonstrations. He wanted to show how much rocket power could benefit and travel by any means as a way of gaining interest and ultimately funding to do the experiments that Oberth knew were necessary to develop better rockets. So while Oberth was developing liquid-fueled rockets, and Valier was in his spare time as well, Valier was the only one, or one of the only ones, doing public demonstrations using black powder rockets for the sake of public interest. Valier started by strapping rockets onto an Opel race car that didn't have an engine to make it a little bit lighter. He also strapped rockets onto sleds, knowing that the lack of friction with a snowy surface would create a much smoother acceleration. He actually got airborne in one of these rocket runs. He also attached rockets to trains, hoping that the movement of wheels on tracks would have less friction and allow him to achieve higher speeds. And Valier even put black powder rockets in the back of a sailplane to create the first rocket-powered plane in 1928. It didn't end well. The rocket ended up exploding, the plane caught fire, but the pilot successfully landed it and didn't do much damage to himself, although he did kind of burn his tush. Valier was killed when a liquid engine combustion chamber that he was working with exploded. A piece of shrapnel pierced his pulmonary artery and he bled to death. That was on May 17th of 1930. Interestingly, 74 years to the day before Kai Michelson's team launched the first ever civilian rocket into space. I feel like had Valier not died in his Berlin laboratory that day, his own career path would have taken one very similar to Kai Michelson's. So if you guys want to know more about Kai Michelson's story, there is a documentary being made about him, and I think it's definitely a really good one to make, because we definitely need more stories out there about kids that teachers don't think are very clever but are actually geniuses, because we gotta encourage the kids, you guys. The documentary's production company has an Indiegogo campaign running this month. They're raising money to help finish up telling Kai's story. So if you want to be a part of helping get this story out into the world, definitely consider donating. I'll have all the links below. So what do you guys think about the modern Max Valier? Are there other men or women from history, be it modern or vintage history, that you think their stories haven't gotten their due yet? Leave me your thoughts in the comments below, any questions you might have, and of course, ideas for future episodes. Be sure to follow me on Twitter for vintage-based content every day of the week, and with new episodes going up Friday and occasionally on Tuesdays. Subscribe right here so you never miss an episode.